From Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Korach, Holy Elitism. Looking at our Parsha this week, we see Korach is complaining. His first complaint is based on a very enticing idea. Ki chol ha'eda kulam kadoshim uvtocham Hashem. All of the nation are holy, and God is in their midst. It's true. After all, the Jews stood at Sinai. The Jews had a vision of God at the splitting of the sea. The Jews had a vision of God in Egypt. Every Jew is holy. We are a mamlechet kohanim, a people where each one of us is a kohen. It's a goy kadosh. It's a holy nation. That's what we were told at Mount Sinai. Korach is right. We are a holy nation. In fact, Korach further enticed the people and lured them in by wearing a talis that was completely full of techelos. It was completely made out of that blue, special indigo thread. And then he asked, does a talis that's completely indigo, does it need another string to remind us of God? The whole talis is holy. The whole talis reminds us of God. Do I really need one extra string, two extra strings to remind me about God? It's a good question. He has a bayis malei svarim. He has a house full of books, full of sifrei Torah, full of Torahs. And you need to put that little mezuzah on the door. Doesn't make any sense. Korach has a wonderful kashas. He has three questions. These three questions of Korach: what do you need special people for? What do you need special rituals for? And what do we need special reminders for? This question is a very deep kind of a question. And actually, what he's challenging is the whole idea of Kedusha altogether. The whole idea of holiness. After all, what is holiness? Some things are holier than others. There are places that are holier than others. The land of Israel. That was a challenge of last week's parsha. They were meraglim as spies. They refused to go to the land of Israel. They didn't understand the difference between the desert, where there was some holiness, they were with God, and the land of Israel. The land of Israel is holier. People, that there could be people such as Moshe Rabbeinu, who is holier somehow than everyone else, even though everyone is holy. And then there are things, there are objects that are holier, the tzitzis, the mezuzah, holier than that which lies in its surroundings. This idea of separation and holiness, as Westerners, it flies in the face of the democratic ideal that everyone is equal, that there's no difference. Of course there are differences. There are doctors and lawyers, Indian chiefs. There are those who, the head of the class and the back of the class. And yet we're all equal fundamentally. Fundamentally, at the core, every human being is holy, Tzelem Elokim. We have at least potential for great things. So we have this tension. The Gemara says, "Ein das havdalah minayin." If you don't have knowledge, where would you come to make havdalah, to make a distinction? The idea that there are distinctions requires a lot of knowledge. It requires a lot of thought and understanding that there are indeed differences. You might ask, how can the land of Israel be holy? After all, Melo chol haaretz kavodo, God's glory fills the whole land. How can the Beis Hamikdash be holy? After all, Melo chol haaretz kavodo, the whole earth is filled with his glory. How can a Talmid Chacham be greater than everyone else? After all, the Torah is given to everyone. It's kol harotze lilmod yavo v'yilmod. Everyone can take it. What Moshe was asserting is that no, there is an idea of Kedusha, of holiness. There needs to be das, there needs to be knowledge, understanding that there are distinctions. Everyone has potential for holiness, but some have revealed that potential in a greater way. All of the earth is potentially a great place filled with the glory of God. But in the Beis Hamikdash, in the land of Israel, that potential is given a further opportunity. And there is a need for remembrance as well. Shimon Schwab, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, he said that what Korach was asserting is that I've got holiness all around me. I don't need any reminders. I'm a mystic. My heart is filled with the love of God. I pray to God all the time. so I don't need any particular ritual. That's what Korach says. And comes the Torah and says, today you might be filled with the love of God. But the idea of ritual, mezuzah, tzitzis, is that every single day there's going to be that thread. Today you might be wearing a blue talis. Today your heart might be filled with the love of God. But what about tomorrow? If there is that blue thread, if there is that mezuzah, then you have a guarantee every day. There are opportunities for holiness, connecting with God, remembering the mitzvos of Hashem. But if you're going to depend on that blue garment that you happen to be wearing today, tomorrow you won't wear. If you depend on your heart, which today is filled with the love of God, but maybe tomorrow it won't be, then that is lost. The idea of ritual is to indeed ritualize, to make daily that which may have on occasion. Korach, you're filled with the love of God, filled with holiness. But by having the particular individuals in our community, we put them on the pedestal and say, you are the leaders of the community, that ensures that the community will run smoothly. The idea that every Yid is holy, every Jew is holy, surely that's true. But there are those who have achieved an extra closeness with God through their study of Torah. The Parsha of Korach challenges the whole idea of Kedusha, the whole idea of holiness. And after all, the centerpiece of Judaism is the idea that the land of Israel is holier than other places. The idea that the Jew has potential to connect with God in special kinds of ways. The idea that the mitzvos, that these particular rituals are the thread and the path to a life of godliness. Korach challenged this entire system. Let us hope that we can understand to appreciate the idea of holiness, the idea of setting aside special times, special places, special people, things that are especially holy, and that through that we can ritualize, we can make constant that holiness which is potentially there in every individual, and that with this we can truly fight off lo yeh Korach adato, will not be like Korach, will appreciate the whole idea of holiness. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sfard Beth Elameth congregation for our discussion of Korach. Join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha and the various holidays. Thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.